So you're good at what you do. People trust you. You climb the ladder, you hit senior, and then suddenly there's no clear next step. You don't want to manage other designers. You definitely don't want to plateau. How do you keep moving up? But what if the answer isn't straight up? Well, my guest today, Ran Liu, believes the answer might be a diagonal move into the spaces that stretch you, expand your range, and make you harder to replace. So stick around because today we're unpacking how to find those moves and why that might be the smartest career decision you've ever made. What's up, UX fam? How's your mom and them? Welcome to another episode of Beyond UX Design. I'm Jeremy. If you're new here, welcome. I am super stoked to have you. You ever ship a feature that should have never seen the light of day, or survive a sprint planning where nothing got planned? Or maybe you just said, let's circle back under your breath for the 50th time this week. Well, you, my friend, have earned a Merit-ish badge. Introducing the Beyond UX Design Merit Badges, a vintage-inspired sticker series for UX designers, PMs, and engineers who have seen things. Choose from 3 sets: soft skills, sharp tongue, the Cult of Figma initiation, the Pixel Pusher survival kit, and more to come soon, so stay tuned. Each set of 5 badges celebrates the chaos, the coping, and the conference calls that should have been DMs. Stick them on your laptop and flaunt them at your stand-up. Show the world you made it out of Q3 with your sanity mostly intact. Get 1 set of 5 stickers for $12 or 2 sets for $20 at beyonduxdesign.com/badges. Just promise me one thing: send pics and show me where you stick them. How often do you stare at a blank Figma canvas unsure where to start? Well, this episode is brought to you by Mobbin, the ultimate UI and UX design inspiration library. Mobbin gives you instant access to over 400,000 beautifully designed UI and user flows from apps you love, and content is added weekly, so you never have to start from scratch again. Quickly find exactly what you need. Search by app category, UI patterns, or even specific features. And my team and I use Mobbin daily at work to find useful patterns, and it helps my team work much more efficiently. And honestly, I can't imagine kicking off a new feature without Mobbin. So are you ready to level up your design process? Visit mobbin.com/beyondux to get 20% off Mobbin Pro and never run out of inspiration again. And if you haven't done it already, please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you are regular here and you feel like you're getting something out of the show, I would really appreciate you leaving a 5-star review. That'll help me out so much more than you can imagine. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Sarah, Quan, Stacy, Roddy, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, Kevin, Jason, Michelle, Marty, Tino, Adina, and Zoe for all their support. And if you want to join these fine folks and many others and help keep the show independent and ad-free, you'll get exclusive access to the entire video library of episodes, including episodes before they're even released. Get instant access to those videos right now for as little as $5 a month. And for more information on how you can support the show and help more people find out about what we're doing, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. And of course, if you think the show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told some friends. So I think every designer has gone through this, right? There's a moment, it hits all of us. You've made it to senior. You might have even made it to lead. What do you do now? You don't want to turn into manager. You don't necessarily want to be a director. You might want to stay in IC, but you don't want to stagnate. Well, I am excited to talk to my guest today, Ran Liu, about how to take control of your own growth, read those signs when it might be time to move on, and how to build that kind of visibility that keeps those opportunities coming to you, both inside and outside of your company. Ran's a product designer and host of Ran Talks Design, having worked at Adobe, Amplitude, Webflow, Shopify, and most recently as a founding designer at Gable AI. She shares learnings on career growth and design strategy to help professionals get unstuck and build the careers they deserve. Ran, I am so excited to have you on the show today. How is it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked.
Hell yeah, I am also stoked. Great word, by the way. I love stoked. I don't run into many people who say they're stoked. If you say you're stoked, it's my people. You're my people. So welcome to Beyond UX Design. Ran, I'm so excited to have you on. You've been doing a lot of stuff, worked for some awesome big name tech companies. Impressive to see. Tell us a little bit about you, and ultimately, how did you come to this conclusion that sometimes the way up is not straight up, but sometimes it's a little bit up and to the left?
Yeah, so you already did an awesome intro of me, but I can talk a little bit when I learned that diagonal is something you can do. So that was when I was working at Amplitude. And I think one of our coworkers left and joined another company, and we were talking about them. And one coworker made a comment that they made a risky move because they did this diagonal move. I was like, what is a diagonal? So apparently that's when someone leave the company and go to another company that also get a higher title. So it's like getting a promotion and a new job at the same time. And that's when I had a eye-opening moment. I was like, wow, you can do this? This is possible? I feel like I just unlocked the cheat code to career. Because we all know getting a promotion might be hard. There's a lot of things you can't control, like how business doing. Is there a business need? Like how is your manager perceiving your work? All that things. But then if you can pull out a diagonal move in your career, that might just accelerate your career by many years. I don't know. So that was an eye-opening moment, and I decided that's what I'm going to do for my next job. And I think I started thinking about it more. I expanded the notion of diagonal a little bit more, not just a title change, because all companies are different. In a much mature company, it's very hard. Like they have very clear levels. There's a lot of requirement. So a staff designer at Adobe is probably very different than a staff designer at a startup. So there is company size that should be taken into account. So if you go from a smaller startup to the same level at a much larger company, a much mature organization, it is technically also a diagonal move because all of that will propel you faster to the next level.
Well, that was the first thing I was going to ask is, what is a diagonal move? But you just covered it for us. So I love that. It's like you have your own show and you know what's coming. I don't know. It's crazy. So, Ran, I love that. So you mentioned a few things in there I think is really important. Diagonal move, when we think about promotions at work, it's so hard to get a promotion at work, right? And it's funny because a lot of people, they think like, oh, I've got to have my end year review and try to convince my boss at the end of the year that it's time for a promotion. And what most people don't realize is by the time those reviews come, budget has already been set for the next year well in advance, probably months and probably multiple quarters in advance. And if you were not slated for a promotion or a raise, guess what? The end of your review is way too late to have that conversation. But for some reason, most people in general, designers, engineers, product managers, everybody, we kind of wait until that meeting. And so if you're not really strategic about even how to get a promotion within your own company, because often there's channels to go through, there's protocol that you sort of have to hit. And unfortunately, a lot of companies, they don't even have very clear definitions and rubrics around what constitutes the next level. And so proving that you should be there, it often comes down to just like, and I hate to say this, but a lot of times it's just like, does your boss really like you? Does your boss have the extra money to throw around? Because sometimes they might want to give you a raise and promotion, and still you don't get it because it wasn't approved by the higher ups. And so leaving is often a really great way to get that promotion, which is sad in a way. But I don't know if you have any experience like getting stuck there, but if people feel like they're stuck in their career, talk to me a little bit about that. Like when you feel like you're getting stuck, I guess the big question might be, how do you even know if you're stuck? Because some people might be sitting there thinking like, oh, I have a chance. And they wait, they don't even realize until maybe it's too late that they're stuck. So I'm curious, what would be some examples of being stuck from your perspective? How do you even know if it might be time to skedaddle?
Yeah, so I had a really good run at Amplitude, and I was also feeling stuck a little bit at the end. So let me explain. I joined Amplitude pretty early on. I was the second UX designer there. So I was part of the Series B hire, and it's like the rocket ship rapid growth sort of period. So it was very exciting. But then if you work at any sort of startup, that means your career trajectory is extremely blurred. There is no defined levels. First of all, like when I joined, there's no really any meaningful levels. You have titles, but that doesn't really mean anything. And chances are a lot of times you don't have a design leader that actually understands design the craft. You are often reporting to a head of product or a product manager in some sense. So a lot of times, even if you have levels that might not be like a accurate measure of your work performance because they can't really evaluate your craft. For example, early on the Amplitude, if you want to be a principal, so like they don't even have levels, they don't have a staff level. If you want to be the next one, you can be a principal, but then you have to lead 3 different work streams or project directions. It's not really a good measure on how many projects you do because not all projects are created equal. There's complexity that matters a lot more, complexity and ambiguity. So in the beginning, I was dealing with very unfair and unclear promotion criteria, and with a manager that kind of treat me as a PM. So I become a PM hybrid type of designer because of that. And then I have to wait some more so we can hire a head of design when we have budget. So another year goes by, we hired a head of design. And then I have to wait some more when they have to come up with a clear level, get approved, instrument systems. And I waited all of that. And then here comes the promotion season. I thought I did a lot of great work. But unfortunately, a lot of my contribution happens before the head of design joins. And then there's some miscommunication because they were working on what levels look like. So we didn't really have the calibration conversation. So when promotion time comes, I was like, yes, I'm finally getting the promotion I deserve. It's been 3.5 years. But then what I was getting is, you're almost there. Not there yet. Not enough impact. And I feel like that's like a slap face, and I was stunned. It was like, how could you? So I actually felt really stuck at that moment. One, like no longer motivated to do the good work that I've been putting in. And I don't feel appreciated and feeling a little bit angry. And yeah, I don't want to wait another year to hopefully get to the next level. I think that's a place I truly felt like I'm stuck, and then I don't see a clear path over to the next level.
Yeah. It's interesting that this is also a lesson, I think, for leadership to realize that the reason why people are making diagonal moves is often because they don't feel like they're getting what they need in their current role, which is sad because all of that institutional knowledge and all of that tribal knowledge in your brain is now gone. And you've been there, like you said, second designer, right? So they lost their second designer who understood all the background and the reasoning behind all these design decisions and all that, which probably was not captured and saved anywhere. And so when you go, that institutional knowledge and tribal knowledge is gone, which is sad. It's almost like not the right audience for this particular show. Maybe we'll send it over to some ex-leadership podcast. Hey, run this episode because this is a good lesson in here for your people. It's funny. We used to make a joke at one of my old places that in order to get a promotion, you had to leave and then come back. Because actually what would happen a couple times, people left, they came back and they brought back on higher level than they were before. And it's kind of, again, same example, like you just sort of lose the morale, and then, the work suffers. Ultimately, the users and the business suffer because nobody's heart is in it anymore, which is really sad, very sad. It makes me sad. So something I'm curious about, though, a lot of times when we think about that diagonal move, maybe mid-level or just, UX designer, you're trying to get to senior, you're trying to get to staff. In order to do that, you've got to invest in yourself and actually get to the point to where you are, actually worthy of that title. I don't want to say we're trying to overlevel anybody. So you've got to get there. Thinking about that growth, one of the things, like, it's interesting because I just had a good conversation with Yao at Antor recently about how a lot of times we just wait for someone to approve a budget to finance us to go take a course or a conference or something like that. But this is what you're arguing, though, is like you've got to put it on yourself. So talk to me a little bit about that. I want to talk about, like, when you're feeling stuck, you feel like you want to get that promotion. How do you go about improving your own skill set and growing so that you can make it to that upper level at a different company?
Yeah. So I use the diagonal move as a way of saying you should be strategic with your career. And I'm not saying everybody should job hop and just leave. That's not a good idea. If you can move up or get promotions, by all means, get a promotion. And if you can't, for unfortunate reasons, you can't change, diagonal might be an option for you. So the ultimate message here is you are in charge of your career and you should treat it as a strategic chess move. If the question is, what can you do when you are feeling stuck in your career? I think one is you really need to evaluate your current situation. Like, a lot of us feel stuck because it's scary out there. The job market at this moment in October 2025 isn't the best. There's a lot of budget cuts and a lot of companies are downsizing and not willing to hire new people. So there's a lot less jobs. But also your promotion situation is probably not any better because when your company is downsizing, there's less budget used on like human resources and it's probably less promotion happening. You'd be just happy to have a job still. So I don't think promotion is doing that great either. So you really need to like evaluate your current situation. What I would always think I would come down to roughly 3 areas. One is, are you learning valuable skills, doing projects you like and things you haven't experienced before? So if you're learning, that's good. And then the second, are you having the right leverage or ownership to influence and make an impact? And sometimes you have micromanaging managers or the company is set up in a way design is just a pixel pusher. So a lot of times the culture or the structure where your manager is preventing you to really have ownership and do all the things you want to do. So if that's the case, that's like a big warning sign. And if you feel like you can still do whatever you want to do, so that's another really positive sign that you should consider maybe stay. And the last one is, do you have a clear career ladder? And is it clearly defined what you need to do to go to the next level? Have you had the conversation with your manager? If you had 2 or 3 conversations with your manager, like the answer is like a vague, no, you're almost there, we're not there yet, but then with no concrete steps of how to get there, that should also be a warning sign. So you need to decide if like current environment you're in is supportive of your growth in the next 6 months to a year. If 2 or 3 or all of them are like in the warning sign area, I think it's definitely a time to consider maybe I want to explore opportunities elsewhere.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then, because this sort of begs the question. Let's say I do work at sort of like what you're sort of describing, low maturity. There's not a lot of rubrics for growth. We don't have a clear development plan. Projects are probably just like sort of handed out. They're expecting you to be a pixel pusher, things like that. And so you're feeling like it's time to move, but maybe you haven't gotten the experience to actually get the promotion and a diagonal move. So you're sort of struggling there. If I'm in that position and I don't have all of the opportunities at work, how do people go about getting that experience so that they can make that diagonal move?
Yeah, I love it. So yeah, one thing that you should really not do, no matter if you stay or you leave, is waiting for other people to be in charge of your career. Like the biggest career myth out there is my company, my manager, my fill in the blank is responsible for my career growth. No, nobody's job is to grow you in your career. You are the only one who have the control. You are in the driver's seat of your own career. You have to really take control and stop waiting for other people's permission and stop asking for another project and figure out what you can do in the situation to get what you need. And if your problem is you don't have enough experience or a variety of experience, and then at work, like you're waiting on a bigger scope, I would say consider doing a side job. A lot of designers, like I work at a lot of creative companies like Adobe and Webflow, and everybody has a side project. And with this age of AI, it's very easy for you to build an app. If you have an idea, you can build the product or the project you always wanted. I used to volunteer for nonprofits that make a lot of their website. So that's how I moved to the next level when I was a junior designer, and I get more experience that way. So that's like you're working with real client. It's not as good as your full-time job projects, but it can be a supplemental project if you just need more experience.
Yeah, I love that. So let me ask you something else. A lot of times what people will do is they'll find an online course, someone Maven maybe, or something like that. And that certainly is valuable to learn things. But I'm curious from your perspective, when it comes to proving that you can do the work of somebody at another level, do courses like that translate from a hiring manager's perspective to that higher band? Or do you think that it really requires actual boots on the ground experience doing some of the volunteer work and stuff. How do you feel about courses and things like that as it relates to this conversation of diagonal moves? Do you feel like they help or they
I
probably
think
hurt?
courses are great when you are thinking of maybe upskill yourself. I took a course that's life-changing. I took the Illustrator course. So I came from a computer science background. I taught myself how to do visual design part. And apparently for something like an Illustrator, you have to take a course. Like learning it on your own is a little bit tough.
Yeah. You mean Adobe Illustrator, like the software?
Adobe Illustrator, yes.
Yeah. Side note, I taught myself how to use Adobe Illustrator out of a book back in the day. I think it was like CS6 or something. So this is how long I've been doing graphic design. And it used to come with a little CD in the back. And I still have somewhere on Google Drive, like all those little practice files. But I remember teaching myself Illustrator was very hard. I
love it.
Absolutely taken a class.
You're very disciplined. I also have the book, and I think I followed like a couple lessons, but not the whole lesson. I wish I could. So I took a course, and it ended up being like it unlocked a whole side of visual design, like the illustration side, and I really like digital illustration. It's one thing I would like to explore more on my own time. But going back to the topic, I think courses are great if you are stuck, like you're new to UX. Take a Figma course and do some projects, because I think you learn best when you're doing something. If you are just copying work and you're not really creating, it's just the input, you're not practicing. So the course can help, but in terms of getting a diagonal move or just any job, like even lateral move, I don't think they help as much. I don't know how many recruiters will actually go through your course list. Probably around 0, maybe 1 in 100 that will look at those. Right now, time is scarce. Nobody is going to look at the course you take. You have to translate your skills into something tangible. And I think for designers, it's your portfolio. Like if you took an Illustrator course and you want to go into the visual like delight, and you just create a lot of illustrations and put it in a project, and people can see, oh, this person can illustrate. You can probably attract some jobs there by showing your work from your course or side job. And if you want to go for diagonal, I think a lot of times, unfortunately, you have to create those opportunities and experience within your current organization, because most companies will look for real professional experience. Even nonprofit might be like a little stretch because it's like a client type of work, like agency. If you're looking for an in-house full-time position, those matters less. So what I would suggest in that situation, you really have to take initiatives. Go talk to people. Be a bumblebee in your company. Talk to everyone, know what everyone is working on, and start looking for problem areas. Build a pitch and get that project initialized.
Yeah, initialized.
Yeah, initialized. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So you mentioned a second ago about being strategic with your career. And what I'm hearing a lot of this as well is being not just being strategic in the places you apply to and the roles that you take, but being strategic in the work you have done or the work that you want to do so that you can have the right case study. Because just like you said, if I'm going to in-house a large internal IT department in-house at an enterprise or something, the nonprofit down the street probably is very meaningless if I put that case study in my portfolio. And so being, you don't want to waste your time, even if it's meaningful work. It's, maybe not a waste of time, but you know what I mean. If you're helping people out, it's not a waste of time. But, being strategic about the side work that you do so that you have the right case studies to attract the right job that you want. And so I'm curious if you could talk a little bit more about like that strategic piece, because, we throw around a lot of things like do this, you could do that, you could do this, you do that. But really what's good for you might be different than what's good for me, might be what's different from someone else. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that strategic piece. Like how does one go about, playing, like you said, chess with your career? Do you have like a framework or something that you like to use to sort of sit down and really think about where you want to go as opposed to just sort of falling forward or falling upward maybe and not really putting any thought into it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a framework. It's actually really simple. But I recommend everybody to think one step further with your career. at least one step further. So if you're ready to look for a new job right now, think about what type of job you can do right now that would unlock more opportunities in the future, the direction on where you want to move. Like, for example, Hang is doing this OnlyFans kind of project where you only go to these big, prestigious, design-oriented organizations. And I think that's out of reach to a lot of us, me included. I might not be able to get a FANG job tomorrow. Then if that's your goal, you should look at that. So my ultimate goal is to get a job as a product designer at Meta. And look at you now. Where am I now? Like, I'm working at unsexy B2B company that's not very visual forward. And then Meta is all about details, visuals, delightful animations. So there is a skill gap and experience. So how can I use a kind of like a stepping stone, like a new opportunity, or add some sort of side project or like jobs at my current role to bridge this gap? Like, maybe I just spend a day more on my project, or like burn a little bit midnight oil to add some delightful animation for my next feature. Like, it's not required, but I add it and then took your engineer to coffee so they actually build that easing function right, and have you look over their shoulder to tweak the interaction a little bit. And then now you have one more thing to show in your next portfolio presentation with Meta.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it is really simple. I guess that's a good point, because when we think about being strategic with your career, a lot of people might assume it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of work, you got to get really deep, but it might just be as simple as like what you're describing, thinking one step ahead. Where do I want to be next? And what's interesting about that too is, again, that next step, everybody wants to work at FANG companies, but there's a lot of people that don't. There's a lot of people that might have kids or something, and they're like, I don't want to work 80 hours a week and have these deadlines every day and be really stressed out. I just want to work for a large, giant enterprise and just coast for a couple of years. And maybe I do want to move on and do something else. I actually had an awesome coaching call earlier today where I was talking with a client who is trying to start their own startup. They're trying to found a startup. And they're actually looking for is the opposite of a really stressful FANG job. They're trying to find like an internal, just like I said, enterprise IT where they could just be another nameless face in a crowd of other designers on a team and just do the bare minimum and just coast on by and get paid every 2 weeks so that they can focus on their side project and not have to feel all stressed out and freaking out every day and week about not delivering on time and getting laid off. And so, that's a strategic decision. A lot of people would think that's crazy from a design perspective, but that's the right decision for that person. So, anyway, I don't know. I just love that. I think even like just sitting down and just thinking about it over a cup of coffee is probably more than most people do when it comes to career planning and career growth. You don't have to hire a career coach to talk through this stuff. It might help to have an outside perspective and to shed some light on some blind spots or something. But anyway, it could be absolutely as simple as that. And which sort of leads me to think about that. I'm curious, like, just what would be like a mindset shift that you think could help designers that are maybe stuck in that kind of waiting around for things and not really thinking? Is there a trick? Is it just like, do it? I'm curious, how do you shift that mindset?
I think you just have to do it. And then we don't do it because of resistance. Like, Stephen Pressfield said in The War of Art, your biggest enemy as an artist and also designers is resistance. We tell, oh, that's too hard. Oh, no, we're not good enough for FANG companies. We tell all these negative self-talk, but there's actually the resistance speaking. Like, anytime you feel a little bit scared or you feel a little bit of fear, you should be excited about it, because that's a sign that you are about to step out of your comfort zone. You cannot grow inside your comfort zone. You have to step out of it. Growth happens outside your comfort zone. So I think that's a mindset, to be excited about something that you're scared of.
It's interesting because like when I think about, again, this is different for everybody. So I don't want to say that everybody always has to be challenged in the next step. But when I think about work, first is compensation, obviously. I've got a wife, 2 kids. I got to worry about making enough money. But second is, is this the same old boring crap I've always done? All things equal, would I want this job? Or am I going to learn something? Am I going to feel challenged? If I'm scared about an opportunity, the chances are good there's an opportunity for growth there, because I'm scared. I'm nervous. I don't know if I could do it. This is something I've never done before. Am I going to be good enough? Am I going to get fired? That kind of stuff. Like when you feel that to me sort of screams like that might not be a bad choice, like unless it's something else, it's like a gut feeling telling you this is a really bad decision. But I love that, growth happens. What was it you said? Growth happens when you're
outside your comfort zone.
Outside your comfort zone. I love that. You should put that on a mug, by the way.
I did not come up with that saying. It's somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Someone already did it.
Somebody did? Well, okay. Well, you could, fair use that. Just put it on a mug anyway. So something I want to talk about is, that idea, though, of being like strategic and going after your strategic goals. But then there's a lot of people that are just like, I think I would call them ambitious. People that just like, I want the senior title. I want the director job. I want to be lead. I want to be staff or whatever. And all they're chasing is the title. And I'm curious if like you've had experience there, if like personally, is that something you might have done in your early career? But also like, how do you move past that and realize that, again, playing chess, the next role might not be a higher title. And even still, like you mentioned earlier, it could be diagonal, even if it is a lower title. So I'm curious, like, how do you kind of shift that thinking from chasing a title to being more strategic?
I think it's okay, first of all, if you're title motivated. Like we're all motivated by something. Some people are motivated by compensation. Some people are motivated by title. I was in a coaching call with a mentee, and she was like, I really want to be staff or like a senior. Maybe she's mid-level. I was like, what if someone give you more money as you like, just no senior title? And she's like, no, I still want the title. Clear case where she is motivated by the title change, give her a sense of progression in her career. And I think that's totally okay. If you just want that, just be clear, be honest with yourself, is fine. And if you just want like compensation, you're compensation motivated and you have family to feed, you're the breadwinner, it's totally fine. We all want a little bit more money. That there's nothing wrong with that. So just be clear of that and think, how can I make more money from there?
Yeah, I like to say, call me what you want. Pay me what I'm worth. You call me whatever the hell you want. I don't care. Call me like turkey sandwich. Just pay me.
Yeah.
I don't care.
So you are not title driven, but you're confident driven.
I'm not even greedy about it. I'm just like, pay me what I'm worth. What are you paying other people? It's funny. Back when I started working at a company, this was like a decade ago, I got a huge raise because I was working in advertising when I shifted over to, I was working at a startup, then went into advertising, and the startup was not paying me anything. And I worked for this giant company. And they did the classic thing. What is your salary today? What's your current salary? So I told them, of course. And so they gave me a bump. And I'm like, yes, I got a raise. I didn't find out for 4 years when one of my bosses was like, do you realize you're making the same as our interns? And I was a lead designer at that point. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And so she helped me, like Regan, shout out to Regan. She got me like leveled. I made like, it was like a crazy like $50,000 raise. But I was like, oh my God, I can't believe So ever since then, I'm like, you know what? I don't care what you call me. Just pay me what I'm worth. Side tangent. Sorry about that. That happens a lot on the show. All right. So when we talked a couple of weeks ago, we had an awesome little pre-interview prep call. And you mentioned something about visibility being a currency. And that's your currency for career growth. And it's interesting because visibility might look different in different places. So I want to talk a little bit more about visibility. A lot of times we talk about like upward mobility inside of a company, it requires you being visible to leadership and stuff. But even like outside, if we're talking about diagonal moves, moving outside the company, I'm curious, like talking about like visibility and what does that actually mean to you? People think immediately, oh, I got to build my personal brand and post on LinkedIn. That's not what it really means. Maybe that is, but probably not. I don't think anybody cares personally about how much you or I post on LinkedIn and shit. Like HR managers could not care less about that, I promise. But I'm curious, what does that actually mean when it comes to visibility as it relates to those diagonal moves?
Yeah, I think visibility is a huge component if you want to pull off a diagonal move. Although it can be done, it's very difficult because you have to be an expert of building inspired confidence that you can do a job that you've never held the title. So you have to convince people that even though I have a lower title, I'm actually doing the job that you're asking for. So I think one way of building visibility is give people a pill of confidence that you can actually do the job. Like it doesn't have to be post on LinkedIn, although that's like a great way to get started, to have some sort of preference. You can get involved with some sort of community. It can be a small community. That's how I started. And then you will be invited to go on meetups and give small talks. I'm still stuck at that level and no conference want me to speak on the big stage, you can join awesome podcasts like this one. You can pitch yourself so you can start getting your thinking and your philosophy out there that way. And you can also be just helping out, do these coffee chats with people, build your network. And then so when people think about like they're looking for someone, there's an opportunity, they think of you. And I think that's actually a very, like a huge advantage. Because if you work with someone or you have chatted with someone before, it's much, much more likely that you will get an opportunity and you will get hired for that opportunity.
And, it's interesting you mentioned posting on LinkedIn and things like that. I do think that is helpful. Like, I will say, like, I said this before, like HR managers don't care about posting on LinkedIn. I don't think that's 100% true. I think it depends. You mentioned this before, who's got the time. I would say maybe 5 years ago, hiring managers probably did some research and Googled you and looked at LinkedIn to see what you were posting and things like that. I still think there's some people who will go and see, because what I've actually heard from a couple of recruiters is they'll go on LinkedIn to see if someone's an asshole or not. Are you leaving derogatory comments, like insulting people and things like that? Because I will do that too, to be honest. Like when I get a resume come across my desk, I'll go on LinkedIn and Google them and search and see what are they posting online. Because I kind of like their thoughts, and it's sort of like, I don't know why people think LinkedIn is anonymous, but your name and your face are right there. But people act like idiots on LinkedIn sometimes, and I'm so surprised, but I don't want that person on my team if they're making fun of somebody else or insulting somebody and stuff like that. But I also like to see, like, are they being supportive? Are they posting? Like, what are their thoughts about design, stuff like that? It all depends. If I've got like hundreds of applicants coming through, I definitely don't have time to do all that, but I will absolutely do it for like the people who I want to bring in for an interview. Without a doubt, if their portfolio and stuff like that is up to snuff and I want to bring them in for an interview, I'll go look up and see. Because if I've got like 10 people, I need to I got to cut a few and I don't like their attitude on LinkedIn, you better believe that person's getting cut. But anyway, I think that's great. The other thing I was going to mention is like comments, leaving comments. Like you don't have to go and write posts that get hundreds and thousands of likes and impressions. Just follow a few people, quote unquote, thought leaders that you resonate with and leave a comment on their thread. Or someone else comments and you reply to that comment and you can start a conversation. When we talk about LinkedIn and networking and stuff, I think LinkedIn is a wonderful place for networking, especially for professionals. People automatically assume like I have to DM 1,000 people, and that's not true at all. You can have a conversation with someone publicly in a comment thread and it could be just as impactful as a conversation in a DM. And then you do that for a little while, then send the DM, then ask them for the coffee chat. You already have a rapport. They know who you are. And so that first initial coffee chat isn't as awkward. I love that you call out posting on LinkedIn for stuff like that. You don't have to be a content creator, thought leader, and all that stuff. That's not at all what you're saying, I don't think. But anyway, great insights.
Content creation is hard. To get all the impressions and comments and engagement on LinkedIn is very, very hard. I have not cracked that code yet. And also TikTok, YouTube, and all of them are really hard. Those are like a full-time job to do that. I do think if you find a community or like a few people that you follow and have meaningful comments, that goes a long way.
You mentioned communities like Design Buddies, I think is a really great one. Design Buddies generally is like, I would say a lot of junior designers, people looking to break into UX design. Senior mid might be maybe a little bit lower level for you, but stuff like that. Slack communities, another great. Discord communities, Design Buddies on Discord, but a lot of communities like that online. Just got to find them. Local communities, you mentioned meetups, local meetups. Like that's a really great way to do it, especially now with a lot of companies that are moving to like a return to office. You're no longer competing with somebody from all over the world for that local job downtown anymore, which, sucks you have to go into the office, but on the other side, like maybe there's a positive there, and that like now suddenly the opportunity has now increased because that pool has suddenly decreased substantially. So local meetups, I think, are hopefully, I would love to see that because I really miss that actually. I felt like I don't know if where are you from, by the way? Where do you live? You live in
it's San Francisco.
You live in California, right? So you guys probably had all these anyway, but I found like where I was living in New Orleans and in Cincinnati, much smaller markets, when those remote jobs blew up, like during COVID, after everybody was still able to get together, I found that a lot of people weren't going to those meetups anymore because those local connections weren't as valuable as they used to be. Because, those local connections are not going to help me get a job in some remote, far-off office in another city across the country. And like I said, I like remote. I personally work fully remote right now, so I'm not advocating like going back to the office by any means. But I don't know. I do kind of miss that local community. I feel like maybe an RTO, that's one maybe silver lining. of the art.
Yeah, I hope the Bay Area scene would come back because COVID definitely killed it. Like we had a really good meetup culture, bunch of communities, bunch of meetups. That's how I launched my career. But with online Slack communities, I joined the one called growthdesigners.co. Lex Roman started it and then she left. Yeah, it was a great community where people would post their like experiments and they ask questions. So another more meaningful way to comment by sharing your experience in a Slack question is another one.
Yeah, I love that. So, I want to stress that we are not advocating always to quit and leave your current
Definitely.
job. There might be opportunities for expanding your visibility within your own company too. I don't want to lose sight of that. Talk to me a little bit about trying to build visibility inside your company so that you can maybe try to get that promotion. And if that promotion doesn't work, then go diagonally. How do you do that? Because a lot of times people feel dirty. They feel like self-promotion and they feel weird about it. So they just be quiet and assume their work will speak for itself. And we all know that is never the case. So how do you do that with visibility inside your company without feeling like you're self-promoting and self-aggrandizing?
Yeah, I think a mindset change that really helped me, like also growing up, humility is like a virtue in the Chinese culture. Like I think a lot of immigrants will share similar cultures where you're told to just keep your heads down, do good work, and good things will come. That's actually a very dangerous mindset, at least in the Western society. It does not work. Keep your heads down and no opportunity will come to you. Because again, nobody's job is to grow your career. They're trying to fight fires to save their own butt, things like that. So you have to be in charge. And one thing that's really important is for your coworkers and your organizations to know your impact. And to do that is to communicate the work you've done. And one mindset to keep me feel more authentic to myself and less braggy is instead of saying, hey, look at me, that's a bad mindset because I'll never do that. Like a lot of introverts don't like to do that, and I think a lot of designers, maybe they're also introverts, but a lot of designers also don't like to do that. But if you change the mindset from look at what I did to look what I've learned, like you go from I am this awesome person in limelight to it's what I learned, the context, and I want to help you. It's a very powerful mindset shift for me. And I'm more willing to give more update at bigger channel because there got to be someone who don't know what you know already because you're in it 24/7. And there has to be something you can offer for other teams.
And I love the idea of sharing what you've learned and sharing your insights and your impact. What's interesting is like a small anecdote. I used to work with a guy, UX designer, who I think he was trying to get visibility with this, executive team and things like that. So he volunteered to put decks together for this. And I'm a designer. Let me design your decks for your executive presentation or whatever it was. And, he did that kind of stuff and ended up having a lot of people know who he was. But what's interesting is when people talk to me yeah, but is he a good UX designer? And so when it came time for a raise or promotion, I don't want to say he was overlooked, but, the question was yeah, I know he does all this stuff, but what about his job? Like his actual job, the job we pay him for. Is he actually good at that? And does he deserve a promotion there just because he's doing the side work? He volunteered for it. Is he making, was it a wise decision on his part? And when think about strategically and stuff, being strategic about your career, I think that's an important thing to kind of think about is, sharing your impact and being known for doing great work is very different from just everybody knowing your name. And, everybody knowing your name is not necessarily going to get you a raise and a promotion. I think it's important for people to know your name for sure. I'm not negating that. But at the same time, you've got to make sure people know that you're solving problems, that you're doing all these other things that UX designers are supposed to do so that when it comes time for those raises and promotions, they can say, look, I've seen them do those things. I know that they can do that next level job and I'll give them that raise and promotion. So that's kind of interesting. But you just said something too I want to kind of go back to because we talked about community. You talked about startups and stuff like that. And you mentioned, she's talking at meetups and small events and things like that. And sharing what you've learned is great for insight, but that would be a really great way too to help kind of nurture that community and do a talk about the things you've learned outside of your company as well. It could be the exact same talk, or the exact same insights that you're sharing, maybe just put it together in a different venue. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, but that kind of struck me as you were talking about that. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, sharing or learning is generally like a good idea. Even within your organization, I was in growth for many years. You launch a lot of A/B test experiments, and most of which are failures. And if you are in the mindset of look at me and you only share wins, there's very little opportunities for you to share. So I started to love sharing my failures. It's like a vulnerability moment, like you're showing I don't know everything. But then I think learning from your failure is also very important. Like I personally learned from the failure. And if you learn from failure, it's no longer failure. So you want to share those things out as well. And I'm pretty sure if you are not working on something NDA, like a super top secret, you can share with the community, your tribe of people, and they would help that. Like every time I share something, I take people behind the final product. Like you can launch an Apple keynote, but it's very hard. What can you show? You don't have a whole product line of things to showcase. But taking people behind the scenes on how I made these decisions, and these are the contexts, and these are the learnings, people really appreciate that. And you make a lot of friends that way, like people reach out and you discuss some more. I think it's just a win-win situation.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just love doing that, the thought of that. And then, the other thing too, like you mentioned all the failures, like we've got so many more failures than we have wins, especially if you're trying to, I would just say something I used to do all the time is try to go do a bunch of meetups and talks and just sort of build visibility. You could have so many different talks about all the failures that you've had and what you've learned from them. And thinking back on some of the things in my career, I could book a talk every week for the next 5 years. But, I think about like reframing that, like it's not a failure. If you learn something, it's not a failure. If you learn something, it is a win because you won't make that same mistake again, or you'll know better next time and you'll change it up. And so that is like a perfect opportunity for talks. So anyway, I love that. That's awesome. So we've had you for a little while now. I want to start trying to wrap this up a little bit, but I'm curious. I want to hear from you, just like, what is like a small daily, weekly habit that you can leave everybody off with that'll help, keep that career momentum going, whether that's upward or diagonal or lateral or whatever. It's like a small daily, weekly habit that you want people to start doing that they're not doing today, maybe.
Yeah, so if you're not actively communicating about your work, your progress, start doing that. I would recommend you communicate out your work weekly at a bigger channel that you normally do. So if you have group DMs, don't do that. Go to a team channel because more people probably need that update. And start sending out weekly roundups on your project updates. So we did this, we learned this, and next week we'll doing that. That will also do your manager a big favor of keep track of the work you do. And if you are already doing this, I recommend you challenge yourself to do something that scares you. Just one thing, and then see where it takes you.
I love that. You just do one thing. If you did one thing that scares you or challenges you every week, like just imagine, yeah.
If you want to get on TikTok, just hit that record button. That's how I started with YouTube. And if you want to apply for a talk, go pitch Jeremy to be on his awesome podcast.
Yeah, hell yeah. Trust me. Look, I'll tell you right now, anybody listening out there, I get so many PR agencies asking to send people on the show. I had somebody the other week that it was about a law firm. I'm like, you clearly have no idea what this show is about. But generally, if it's a PR person pitching on someone else's behalf, never respond to them at all. It completely goes. But if it's you and you are the person who wants to come on the show, please, for the love of God, reach out. I would love it. I need 50-something weeks worth of content every year. So if you are out there, let this be an impetus for you to get out of your comfort zone, do something that makes you feel uncomfortable, come on my show, talk about some cool shit that you have. Maybe make it more specific. You had a failure and you want to talk about what you learned from it. Come on the show. I'd be happy to have you on. Just as long as it's not your PR company. It's got to be you. It's got to be you coming on.
This is your sign. Do it.
I love that. That was awesome. I love that you did that. All right, Ran, so we've had you on for a little while. Anything else that we didn't get a chance to cover that you want to make sure everybody knows about as it relates to diagonal moves?
Yeah, I think we covered a lot. The message I want you to take away is you're in the driver's seat. You should give yourself permission to take charge, and you are ultimately responsible of your own career. And to do that, there's a lot of tactics, be more visible and expand your network and communicate your impact of your work better. But those tactics can come later and it's easier to find answers. You can even ask AI about it. But having the mindset change of be willing to take the initiatives is the most important thing.
Just be willing to do it. I love that. Yeah. I would say like just after listening to our talk or being involved with our talk, I wasn't just listening, I was participating. The thing that I'm hearing, the main theme is like, there's so many people just get stuck in their career because they get comfortable and they just get stagnant. They don't grow and they just stay in the same place for forever. And for some people, that is perfectly acceptable and they want to do that. That's great. But if that is not what you want to do, you've got to get out of your comfort zone, just like Ran's saying, and just do something different and try something new. And just like, you never know where it leads, whether that's a coffee chat, random person you met on LinkedIn or coming on the UX Design podcast. I love that, Ran. All right. So I've got 5 questions I like to ask all my guests to help our listeners get to know our guests a little bit better. Do you have time to stick around and answer a few silly questions, Ran?
Yeah, of course. All about silly questions.
Hell yeah. All right, great. So the first thing that comes to your mind, you don't have to think too hard about any of these things. First up, what is your favorite non-design book?
I would say So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. I'm generally a fan for anything Cal Newport produced, but that was a life-changing book for me. It has a lot to do with the diagonal career later.
Okay. All right. So non-design related, but it is a career.
It's a career related. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, cool. What is it again? What was the name of it again?
So Good They Can't Ignore You.
So Good They Can't Ignore You. Oh, I love that. That's a great title, by the way.
That's good.
I've actually never heard of that book. I'm going to check that out. It's on my list, though. All right. Next up, what is your favorite non-design podcast?
I would say Diary of a CEO. I'm dry business self-help person, unfortunately.
I actually listened to that one. That was a good one, too. Yeah, some interesting stories on that show. One thing I think I've learned from listening to that show is like path to business leader, business owner, and stuff like that is generally different. It's always some weird roundabout thing. And there's always an interesting story. Or maybe on that show, because why would you have someone boring on the show? Maybe they, it's self-directed towards interesting stories. But anyway, it's a good podcast. I love that one, too. All right, next up, what is your favorite meal? This could be something you cook or your grandma used to cook or something you had in a restaurant. Favorite?
Yeah, I would say there's a Chinese-style ramen noodle dish. It's called Lanzhou Lamian. It's a ramen from Lanzhou. It's a soup, clear soup with noodles.
Oh, that sounds good. Can you get that in San Francisco anywhere, or is that like just when you go?
It's very hard. You can get like Japanese ramen is more universal here.
Yeah.
But the Chinese style, no, I have to probably travel somewhere.
Yeah, it's like, are you originally from China?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would imagine, I don't know what it is about Chinese cuisine in the United States, but generally speaking, it's like really hard to find like actual authentic Chinese food here. Like I've heard at least from people that there's really authentic Korean food and Japanese food and other Asian and South Asian cuisines. But for some reason, Chinese, it's like always American takeout. Like it's weird that like kind of like General Tso's chicken sort of stuff, which is like obviously not Chinese.
I think that's American. But anyway, Chinese people were too adaptable. And they just do the local taste.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Interesting insight. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, not to knock like American Chinese takeout cuisine or anything. It's not bad, but I often wonder where there would be to go to get authentic Chinese. I don't know because I don't read Chinese or Mandarin or Cantonese or anything like that. But there was a Chinese restaurant back in New Orleans where they would have an English menu and a menu in Chinese. And if you spoke Chinese, they would give you the Chinese menu. And I don't know what was on there. Maybe that was super authentic, but they figured Americans are never going to eat it, so why even bother putting it on the American menu? Anyway, I don't know. It's kind of funny. But all right. Next up, what is your favorite vacation spot?
Maui.
Ooh, why? I have never
really?
been. And I know. It's just like, it's so far. Like it's a really long flight from the Midwest in New Orleans and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, when I lived in New Orleans, but now I live in the Midwest. It's like an 8-hour flight just to get to California before I fly all the way to Hawaii.
Yeah, maybe you should come to San Francisco to see us first, and then you go there.
Do like an extended layover for a few days and then fly out. Yeah, I'll do that. That's a good idea. It's on my list. All right, one day. All right, next up, what is your favorite design tool that is not?
That's a design
Notion
tool.
Counts.
Yeah, Notion.
Yeah. I've had people say Excel and stuff, so if Excel counts, then Notion counts.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say Sketch if you say that's not a design tool. Or Sketch, Illustrator.
Illustrator. I still use Illustrator, though. I actually still use it.
I don't subscribe to it because this is another subscription, but
sure.
I do like Illustrator.
I subscribe to Creative Suite only because I still use Audition, and I edit my book and stuff in InDesign. And I use Photoshop because Figma still doesn't have all the filters and stuff, like the photo filters, like the raster filters that Photoshop does. I found a trick, though, if you're ever curious. Wait until Black Friday and subscribe on Black Friday, and you get it for like half off. It's like $30 a month. And then when you go to renew every year, they're going to say you can't get the Black Friday deal again with the same email address. So you could either create a second email address, like at Gmail, you can do like JMills pays bills, like JMills pays bills +2. And that counts as a second email. And then you can just sign up as a second Adobe, or you could cancel it and then they'll offer you 50% off to continue the subscription.
I love it.
So
Thank you for that tip.
Yeah,
You're a real designer.
You like that? Oh, I'm just broke. I can't afford $60 a month on all that shit. But yeah, I use Illustrator for like vector graphics and stuff. And, you know, I do these stupid little like stickers and all that, you know, and posters and stuff. And like Illustrator is just so much superior to Figma when it comes to like vector illustration design. Like it can do it, but, you know, Illustrator's just, I mean, that's freaking why it was made. You can't beat Illustrator. All right, Ran. I'm going to go so off topic right now. All right, Ran. This has been so much fun having you on. Thank you so much for coming on. Before we get out of here, why don't you let everybody know where they can find you? Tell everybody about all your content and your YouTube channel and all that stuff, and let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, just find me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way. LinkedIn/Ran Liu Design if you want to type in the URL, but just search me on LinkedIn, and then I have a YouTube channel called Ran Talks Design. Feel free to subscribe. I also have a smaller podcast with the same name, Ran Talks Design. That's on Spotify and Apple Podcast.
Right on. Yeah, it's a good one too. I really enjoy your videos and stuff on YouTube, by the way. You do great
thank
work.
you.
So please follow Ran, like, subscribe, and smash that bell. Get notified so when a new episode drops, you'll never miss it. Ran, thank you so much for coming on Beyond UX Design. This has been fantastic.
Thank you so much.